Hello, Trinity Tigers. Welcome to Learning Together, live webinar series as part of Lifelong Learning Initiatives presented by Trinity University's Office of Alumni Relations. I am Krista Potter Scannell, class of 90, Director of Business Development and the Texas Branch Office for Marquis Rental and Staging. It is my sincere pleasure to introduce today's webinar speaker, my amazing dad, Jim Potter, class of 63 and 67, and former director of Trinity's intramural program. Dad, say hi to our webinar audience.
Thank you, Krista. Krista, I can't thank you enough, but we've been talking about this for months now to have an opportunity to visit with y'all. So Krista and I are looking forward to the next few minutes with you guys. So thank you for tuning in.
It is. It's great to be here. And if you played intramurals sports while at Trinity, no doubt you've heard of Coach Potter. He's been a friend, a mentor, a teacher to decades of Trinity students. He built Trinity's intramural program into one of the finest in the nation. And then on August 25th of 2017, Trinity celebrated Coach Potter's nurturing leadership style and exceptional service to students by naming the university's intramural field in his honor. That was a really fun weekend.
That was a wonderful
Wasn't
weekend.
that awesome? Yeah.
Wonderful.
So I'm really delighted to be here today to moderate this webinar and engage my dad, Coach Potter, in a conversation about his career at Trinity in the intramural department. Now, there is a participation aspect for you. We will take questions later on and read them and answer them. So we'd love for you to type in some questions as we go along, and we'll pick a few and address them at the end. So we'd love to hear from you. And again, thank you for being here today. And I mean, this is a pretty cool thing. Here we are on campus. We're in this beautiful Tiger Network studio. In the library and talking to an internet audience.
Yeah.
I can't believe we come a long way from when you started.
We have come a long way, for sure, for when I started.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell everybody a little bit, like, how did you end up at Trinity?
I came to Trinity in 1958 on a basketball scholarship, and I played basketball and baseball here. I graduated in 1963 and then went into the Army. I was a ROTC cadet here, and went to Fort Hood and served about a year and a half at Fort Hood, and then got out of the Army in 1965 to come back to Trinity to get my master's. And so in doing so, Coach Wheeler was the intramural director at that time, but he wanted to go full-time baseball. And so he was my mentor and friend while I was here. And so I took over the intramural program in '65 as a grad student, and Houston went into baseball full-time. So then I was hired by Dr. Jess McClay in 1967 as the intramural director. And of course, everyone taught in physical education, so I taught in the PE department. So that's basically how I got to Trinity and how I fell in love with intramurals and working with the Trinity students here.
And you also fell in love with Mom.
I did fall in love with Mom. Thank you for
yeah.
reminding me of that, or I would be in big trouble.
I know, we probably
big
need to
trouble.
mention that.
I met Mary Alice Cohen Potter at our first week on campus here in '58 at a dance up where the Student Union building is now. And we dated throughout our careers here and got married in 1962.
Yep.
And have two wonderful children and 5 grandchildren. So Trinity has been a huge part of our life and one that we have really enjoyed being a part of.
Definitely. Well, I remember very well basically growing up on campus, coming over in the evening, spending all summer. But you started in 1967, so I think everyone would like to know, what did intramurals look like in 1967 and in the early 70s?
Well, when I came back on campus in 65, the SAM Center was opening, and that was a major, major thing on campus for students. We had a couple of gyms, we had racquetball courts, we had a ballroom that dance was taught in, and the SAM Center was just the place to go, and it continued to grow throughout the time until the Bell Center was established later, when lots of renovations were made. But the intramural field was a part of that, and we did not have a field to play on prior to that. We played on what is now the baseball field. So the intramural field was a really big thing for us because it gave us a place to play.
Yeah, because when you first started, games were at Almas Basin, Breckenridge Park.
Yeah, we played football on the baseball field, but we had no softball facilities, so we go to Breckenridge Park or Almas Basin, and we would use those facilities for softball. So it was a big deal. The SAM Center was a big deal for us.
And then in the 70s, around 74, the Student Finance Board allocated money for intramurals.
The Student Finance Board was the thing that made Trinity Intramurals what it is today, is that we had some funding that we never had before. We had some funding from the PE Athletic Department, but when we started to get funding from the Student Finance Board, that funding was significant. And it enabled us to pay for officials who we never paid before. And it enabled me to pay a staff of students to work in the program. We started out with 4 students, and eventually near the end of the program we had probably 20 or 22 students who worked in the staffing part of it. So the Student Finance Board in this early 70s was an enormous thing for our program. Enabled us to start an outdoor rec program. We were able to get T-shirts, the intramural famous T-shirts, the championship shirts that we gave out all the time. So it was a big deal for us.
And you were able to print your handbook.
I was able to print an intramural handbook, and I did that through the public relations office, and I would get those printed, and then we would at registration, which was held in the Sam's gym. I don't know if any of the recent students would ever believe this, but everybody went to the gym and signed up for classes at a table. There'd be a sociology table, a religion table, PE table, and that's where you signed up for your classes. And so we had an intramural table there with PE. I would pass out our handbooks at that point and try to introduce students to the intramural program.
And then the other thing too is you would do meetings with the RAs and get the halls involved.
That's right. Dr. Grissom would gave us an opportunity to talk to the RAs when they were having their staff meetings, and we would go in and just, in a half hour or so, talk to them about what programs we were going to offer this year and how they could help us get students involved. And that was the big thing is the RAs were really beneficial in getting students involved in our program.
Yeah.
And so we just wanted to let them know how to do that. And they did a really good job for us.
And I remember coming over for like the flag football championship and watching it. And there'd always be a big crowd.
Always a big crowd. The Tiers, the Triniteers and the Bengal Lancers were two really competitive teams on campus in intramurals. And their flag football championship each year was always special.
Yeah.
And lots of people would come, and it was just a big social deal. One that I was always relieved to have over with, but it was a great deal. And we did play there on the intramural field where that is now.
And I also remember coming to the swim meet. That was always a fun event.
That was our first event. Each year we'd have a swim meet, and we at that time did not have a swim team, but we had lots of good swimmers who would come to Trinity, and they encouraged me to put it on, and they did lots of the help with seating and heating different swimmers. So they were Trinity Intramurals was always very heavily student involved, and so they were a big help in getting the swimming meet done each year, and it was a highlight for the. It was the first event we had each year.
Yeah, at the outdoor pool, and a bunch of kids would be there, and it was always a lot of fun.
Always fun.
Always fun. And then we talked a little bit about how the facilities changed over the years and how that helped you improve the participation. But you had some great sports, like I think we have to mention flicker ball. Tell me a little bit about flicker ball.
Flicker ball. I'll have many of you guys who are tuned in remember flicker ball. The chairman of the department, Dr. McClay, taught at Illinois University before he came to Trinity. And he brought this game down with him and brought a copy of the rules and told me that I need to try it in an intramural program. And I read the rules, and it just looked like a disaster. It was a little bit of football, basketball, field hockey, because there were penalties, and if you created a penalty, you left the field. It was played with a football. There was a huge board that was like a basketball backboard with a hole in the center and a net behind it. If you hit the backboard, you got so many points. If you put it through the hole, you got additional points. And it was just a crazy game. But all the students loved it, and we played it for years. It was very hard to officiate the game. But it was one of the really neat things that we played at Trinity. And the physical plant put up the backboards for us, and we had 2 courts going at once, and it was awesome. Everybody, when we had the weekend with the field dedication, I'd have a dozen students ask me about do they still play flicker ball at Trinity. So.
I know. Well, I remember seeing the backboards up and people would always ask, what is that for? Well, it's for flicker ball, of course.
Yeah.
Doesn't everybody play flicker ball?
Everybody plays.
Yeah, it's fun. Well, you mentioned the officials, because the other thing, too, was I remember a story that you told about early on. There would be a class of officials, and that's where you'd go and get your officials before you could pay them.
That's right. Coach Wheeler taught a sports officiating class, and which he covered football and baseball and basketball. And early on, before our funding, from the Student Finance Board, we used those officials, and Coach Wheeler would see that they had to work so many games for so many hours, and that's how we pretty much officiated our sports at that time. And then after we got the funding, we were able to select and train our own officials and actually pay them. So it evolved pretty much from a sports officiating class. But there was a great interest there. Lots of kids officiated intramural sports.
Yeah.
And we had some that went in and became officials to call high school and college football games. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah. And the training was a big part of it too, that they would come in and you would have officiating clinics for
Right.
them.
We would do clinics every year for them and go over the rules. I was on a rules committee for flag football. And so we pretty much had a set of rules that just about most schools played under. So we would train our officials, and I was a football official myself at that time. So we would work very hard at training our intramural officials for all sports, but football was a really big sport for us. Flag football was a big sport.
And it was pretty nonstop from sports. I mean, you would start with the swim meet, but then football and flicker ball and basketball and softball. And you did kickball some and did bowling, ping table tennis.
We actually, when the Sam Center opened, the first opening of the Sam Center, I believe had a 6-lane bowling alley. And we had bowling, intramural bowling. I had some students who had keys to the office and to the bowling alley, and they claimed they had their own league going after hours. I don't know how true that is, but I think it's pretty true. But the bowling alley was great, and we had faculty staff leagues down there. But it was, but when they came in and did the Bell Center, then the bowling alley was gone. So, but it was an interesting concept to have bowling.
Bowling on campus.
Yeah.
And then NERSA, the National Intramural Recreational Sports Association, was also a big part of your career because you went to very early on a convention and made some lasting friendships there. So tell us a little bit about NERSA and how you got involved and what it meant to the program and what you brought back to Trinity from working or attending NERSA.
Yeah, NERSA was our national association, and they had a meeting every year, a conference, and the first one I went to was in Austin, and so I drove up to Austin and went to a couple meetings, and then I asked everybody where they were going to dinner that night, and they all told me there were 2 buses waiting for them to take them to San Antonio to go down on the river. So I have no idea why I went to Austin to go to a meeting that everybody came to San Antonio. But these were all professionals, and we would meet once a year, but we would meet by groups of small college, mid-college size and large schools. But you met these wonderful people who did the same thing you did, and who was interested in giving students a great opportunity to participate in athletics on campus. And I got lots of things to do from them. Co-rec sports was one that was popular at that time. Schools were doing some outdoor recreation, and just certain ways that you did things. And it gave me an opportunity, if any of my students wanted to go on in the field, I would go to NERSA and try to get them a grad assistantship to some schools. And I had a good number of students that did that. and some who went back into the field.
Mm-hmm. And so you had mentioned that at NERSA you would hear about things happening at universities anywhere and bring some of those ideas back to campus. I know that there was some sponsorship opportunities that came back, different tournaments and things.
Yeah, early on in NERSA, Schick
Yep.
Razor Company promoted a 3-on-3 tournaments, and they were held throughout the country. And of course, if you held one on your campus, you got like 10,000 razor blades, and you got shirts, and so you played 3-on-3 basketball, and we did that. Schick did that for a number of years, and we were a part of that, and they always came to us, and we would always participate.
And then tell me a little bit about expanding. You mentioned that you were able to expand to co-rec and outdoor rec. So in the time, 60s, 70s, it was men's sports and women's sports, but then this great idea came about that you could have co-ed teams or teams with men's and women on it. And
That's
so you started that, I think, around 74.
Yeah, 73, 74, we started a co-rec program, or co-ed as we call it, and we're just the men and women would play on the same teams. There were lots of sets of rules for co-ed sports, and there would be a certain number of people on a team, and there would be usually half men, half women. But as an example, a woman had to be a quarterback on a team, a flag football team, and there was different scoring for points in basketball for men and women. And it became just a really popular activity, and everybody enjoyed playing. And it was competitive, and yet not as competitive as the men or women's program. And it was a fun thing. And we usually played on a Sunday afternoon, and so it was a very enjoyable activity that we had.
And that was also the faculty and staff would come and play. They could play men's or women's or co-rec. So
That's
you had,
right.
Yeah, so it was students and faculty. You had some pretty competitive faculty teams,
The
too.
faculty staff was always invited to play in our programs, and many of them did. And the healthcare administration program had teams in our leagues for years, and so it was really exciting to have those all kinds of people involved.
And then the other activity that you started that was kind of all campus was the turkey trot. So
we had turkey trot sort of at Thanksgiving every year, and we got HEB to donate a couple of turkeys for us, and so we would run that usually, the Thursday before the students would go home for Thanksgiving break. And we had a course around the campus. In fact, they still use the same course today. And we went down to the 50th, I think they had. And
in 2017, it was the 50th.
2017 was the 50th year of the turkey trot. And so that was really popular, and we get faculty, staff, everybody was invited to participate in it. It's just a fun thing
Really
to
fun.
do.
Yeah, that was always really fun. And then the other program that you added that became hugely popular really fast was outdoor rec.
Outdoor rec was really, really, it wasn't something I was sure how it was going to go. You had to be careful with it because of the different liabilities that were there, because you were traveling with students in a van. We started out by renting equipment, and we'd rent tents and backpacks and all kinds of rental equipment for outdoor rec, and we just started by renting, And then we had some students who worked on the staff who really wanted to do some other things. And so we started with a spring break trip. And we went to Big Bend for years on spring break, and that was our thing. And that was pretty much the thing that we did. And then later on, we would add camping trips to some of the local camps, where they could go for the weekend. We did kayaking trips. We did some caving trips, and pretty much whatever the students thought was a good idea, we would give it a try. And it was really popular, but usually the spring break trips were the biggest hit of all, and we would limit them to the number, and we started at Big Bend, and I think when I finished up, we were going to the Grand Canyon.
Right.
So
they would load up and drive out to Grand Canyon for
they
spring
would
break?
load up, yeah, and it was an awesome program, and I ended up with some students in it that were really unique
Yeah.
and really special students who enjoyed the
Well, and they
outdoors.
brought to campus experiences, maybe in outdoor activities or camping and all, and really helped develop that program.
Absolutely did, yeah.
And loved it, had
they
a lot
were
of
great.
passion for it.
They were great.
And then there was obviously the really popular tubing trips.
We
that-
did 4,000 tubing
Tubing trip.
trips in my time at Trinity, but we tubed just about every year
Yeah.
up, and tubing was so easy to do
Yeah.
in our location, so it was kind
There
of
was
fun.
a big group of Trinity students tubing down the rivers.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Always, always. And then you talk a lot about your growing. Growing up with me, it was always your kids. You called them your kids. We called them your kids.
Yeah.
They would come to the house they would come twice a year, and
We
Mom
are.
would cook dinner.
Family's dinner for the staff. We would try to go once at the beginning of the year and once at the end. And the students loved to get away. They got out of their dorms and they would come to a home and have a really good meal. And
Yeah.
we'd just sit around and visit and got to know each other real well. And they were really important times, and times that Mary enjoyed having those guys and gals with us, and we made many friendships, and I still have kids today who somebody said that Mary should have been dedicated a field
Yeah.
because she was such a great cook,
Yeah.
and so it was just a great time for us.
Yeah.
And
They-
we love doing it.
And you've said, but then reading the emails that we've gotten and the cards that people reached out during the dedication, and they all talked about how meaningful it was them to work on your staff. But at the same time, that was really your most meaningful part, the greatest joy you had. So talk a little bit about the staff and how that developed. You started with just a couple of people, 4 people, ended with almost 20, but how did that develop and working with the staff?
Well, as Krista said, the staff was really the most fun thing and one of the most important things that I did and I accomplished is to train them and have them. We did weekends together at the beginning of school, and we just enjoyed working with them on a daily basis and trying to get them to do the very best job that they could and instill in them that they were a team on campus. And they all responded to that. They did a great job of very professional job in scheduling and working with teams, other sororities and fraternities, and just the whole concept of the staff how they worked for Trinity intramurals was really a big deal and really important in my career there.
So I think oftentimes I would hear other campus people say, "I can't believe your dad runs that all by himself." But it was never all by yourself. It was you were the one professional person, but they did a lot of work. They would have to recruit, they would have to schedule, they would have to get the officials there, they would come and watch and observe the games.
I was the chief delegator.
Yes.
I did. I was the director, but my philosophy was to give these students as much experience as they could handle and let them do as much as they wanted to do. And I realized early on that they could do the things that I was doing and could do them quite well. The scheduling thing was always a huge thing to do. And I used to do all the scheduling myself when I started. And then when we get some help, they would do the scheduling, and I was always amazed that they did really a much better job than I did, mainly because they took an interest in it and that they were doing it for their peers, and they wanted to make sure their peers did it right. So it was a big deal. Yeah.
And you had weekly staff meetings with them. That was something you look forward to every week.
I love having staff meetings. I look forward to that. We would have them, men, women, co-rec, outdoor rec, and staff, and they would come in once a week for maybe a half hour or 15 minutes, depending. They would talk about the programs, what problems there were, or what we could do to make it better. We at the end of the year, we would meet and decide on the kind of T-shirt we would have for the next year.
Yeah.
So they were really important meetings. So, but we just enjoyed having the staff meetings. Was a big thing for me, and I think it helped them be a cohesive unit and a team. And that was something I always wanted. I wanted them to be a team.
And then the other important role they played is they recruited their replacements.
They did, and they were really good about that. I remember that I did lots of interviewing, but the staff always had somebody in mind who they thought would do a good job, and they didn't always pick a friend. They picked someone that they thought would come in and take their place and do a really good job of running that program. And I was always amazed at how well they did, and I had very few times where their choices were not did not work out like they said they would. Yeah. But they were awesome at that, and it was something that I really enjoyed watching them do, and I listened to them and hired the people they thought were good for our program. And it worked out very well.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah.
It really did. And then you did have several kids over the years end up wanting to pursue beyond Trinity and beyond the IM department in sports, rec sports, or in some sort of sports. So talk a little bit about how you helped them beyond Trinity.
Well, the main thing was that if they were interested in the field, I took them to NERSA, and we would set up interviews for graduate assistantships with schools like Maryland, and we had some go to schools in Ohio, in the Fort Worth area, Dallas area, but they just, the best thing for them was to get them an assistantship if they were interested. And in getting an assistantship, they worked for another director. They were very well trained in what they could do, and I got lots of comments about that, because they had done so much. They did the whole thing. and then it would give them an idea if that's what they wanted to do. Maybe they didn't want to do rec sports. So I had a half dozen or so that went into the field. Some are still in the field and others have left. But it just was a great opportunity for our students to have a chance to be a part of that.
And then so many of the emails or letters that you've gotten also said, I used many of the skills that I learned running my intramural department and league that I use today in my job as an attorney or a business owner or all that.
Yeah, that was always kind of neat because I, you know, doing it at the time, you don't realize what you're giving students. And so...
Because it was fun.
It was
you
fun.
You had a lot of fun.
And they seemed to enjoy it, and they many of them came back and said, you know, just the opportunity I had to do things, that you gave me an opportunity to actually do the stuff and not just talk about it, that I actually did things. And I was able to use that in my career or whatever. So that was always something I was very proud of.
Definitely, definitely. Well, we have some questions. Do you feel like taking questions?
I don't think I should take any questions at this time.
None?
Maybe,
oh, come on.
Let's see who it might be.
Well, and so I do know, oh my gosh. So, all right. This is from Jeff Yao.
Oh, yes.
So we remember Jeff very well. Hey, Coach, this is Jeff. Congrats on the field dedication. Brings back great memories. The question I have are, what are you most proud of all the years with intramurals, and what was the biggest challenge you had? So what are you most proud of, and then what was a big challenge?
Jeff Yao was my biggest
challenge. Jeff Yao was a big challenge. Check. Okay,
yes.
Got that. Yeah.
I think just developing a program around students and giving students an opportunity to be a part of it, in saying being a part of it, doing everything that I would have done as a director, they did. And just to watch them grow and watch them be proud of the programs they were working with. And I was always amazed at how well they did and what a professional interest they took in it. So.
Well, and I think from challenges, it was, scheduling and sharing facilities, but it was a way for them to learn how to handle situations you had to work with around weather or facility issues or things like that. And so that was troubleshooting is always a good skill to learn.
It was, and we had to share facilities with the athletic department, and we had to pick and choose sometimes that were best for us. And in intramurals, that was a little easier for us to do. But that was always a challenge, is finding the right time and place to play, and we were able to do that. And Trinity was so supportive of what we did, and that was something that was really exciting for me, is how much support I got from the university.
Well, I remember you mentioning, Jay Poole when he was here, and obviously Dr. Calgard when he was here, and all the support that you would get from them. When I was growing up, I remember you talking about that.
They were really
Dean Grissom, of course,
instrumental in letting us grow.
Okay, let's see. Oh, here we go. A lot of thank yous, which is very nice. And people saying hello to Mom. Oh, here's a good one. What happened to the couch that was in your office all those years?
The green couch is at the Intramural Smithsonian Institute.
Is it? Yes.
In downtown San Antonio.
In downtown San Antonio?
Yeah.
That was...
Actually, it went to our home. We took it to our first home. And so it stayed with us a long time. And then finally we got some new furniture, and we unloaded the couch. I don't. Did you ever get the couch, Krista?
No,
No.
I know.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I didn't really want the
Yeah,
couch.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
So, but yeah, that goes to the point of you had meetings in your office, but then the staff could come in if they were ever having problems or challenges, and they'd sit on the couch and you talk to them. You had a lot of conversations.
It was a couch that was built for 3, and usually 6 would sit in it. So it was always first one in got the couch.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had lots of good conversations on the couch.
And then James Hill, alum.
I recognize that name.
You recognize that
Yeah.
name? He says he wanted you to comment on the growth of club sports at Trinity and why they're so popular. So I guess he's talking about.
Yeah, well, mainly there was at one time soccer started that
Soccer
way.
was a club sport, right?
But yeah. And McGinley would never admit to that, I'm sure. But lacrosse and rugby were a couple of club sports that were played. And then soccer was played as a club, not intercollegiately, but they would play other schools as a club sport.
Yeah, and then you mentioned, early on there wasn't a swimming team. So that swim meet was the one time that swimmers who came to Trinity got to compete. I mean, there was a lot of that too.
And with some very good swimmers. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right. Oh, we got one more. If I can. Again, a lot of great thank yous from people that we'll definitely read. But Elaine Hinnett is here.
Oh, right.
So we have some. She wanted to bring up the canoe parties on the river. So tell us a little bit about that. Goes back to the staff retreats that we would do.
That's right. And at one time we had a property on the Guadalupe River, and we would have the staff come up there, and Elaine Hennett wanted to ride in a canoe, and she got out there and had no idea what to do, and I think she was floundering around out in the middle of the river, and some of the other students had to go out and rescue her, but she was a disaster in a canoe. So.
But not in charge of outdoor rec, so that was good.
No. So.
Well, good. Well, this has been great. Did you want to bring up anything else?
No, I just thank you so much for helping me get through this, and for Zaleem, thank you so much. This was a wonderful opportunity to share my experiences this way, and Trinity has always been very special to me and to our family, and so I'm happy to be able to be a part of this. Thank you.
And with that, we'll conclude, but I do want to let everybody know that there's another webinar coming up, and this is going to be with Butch Newman, class of 65, but in his conversation about Trinity men's tennis. So that could be pretty good. There's a lot to talk about there.
He'll put you to sleep.
What? Oh,
He'll put you to sleep.
He did He did a pretty good job while he's here. He's a good guy.
Oh, he's a good guy.
I think people should tune. We'll tune in.
I'll tune in. Butch.
Yeah, we're going to work on some questions for Butch.
We'll have lots of questions for you, Newman.
Yep, and then that conversation will also include Russell McMendez, who's the current head coach of men's. So that'll be great, and that's July 25th. So signing off today. Thank you, alumni. Have a great day.
Thank you.